So, comic dramas and comic dubs, why are they so popular and why do we see them a lot here on YouTube? Well, the honest answer is mainly the fact that, sometimes these are stories that from an, animation standpoint, you won't probably see come to life. I mean, if you really want to thank anybody for inspiring people to do that, you can thank, the likes of Marvel Comics, I should say, with their Marvel Knights series and those, comic in motion videos and DVDs they would sell, and the same with DC and others. You can thank them. But if you really want to go back in time, you can thank the old radio dramas and comedies that used to come on the airwaves through the radio back in the 30s throughout the, mid to late 50s, if you will, or early to mid 50s. You can thank them for a lot of this, coming to the forefront, because, this is logically the only way a lot of this stuff will be brought to somewhat, real life, if you will, kind of some kind of, voice attached to it. And one of the most popular comic dramas and dubs out there to be done is the Archie Sonic comics. Yes, some of the IDW ones are getting that treatment as over the past few years have pretty much shown us, but the ones that are the most popular to be done are the Archie books. And sometimes it's the most compelling stories, if not the more interesting stories, that are done. Sometimes it's the controversial ones, but most of the time it's the most compelling, interesting stories that are, taken in that direction. Now, sometimes, they could just be, these comic dubs and dramas for the Sonic comics could just be people editing out, the panels and just people reading off the lines, and maybe a few effects, sounds in the background here and there, and maybe a tiny bit of instrumental non-copyright music thrown in. But sometimes a lot more effort could be put into it. Sometimes, they'll use certain programs to where they'll take, the words out of the word balloon, or they'll leave the word balloon blank, and then they'll have the words fade into that word balloon from the character, when the character is speaking, or when the person that's voicing that character, it's their turn to, speak and do the line. So they use all kinds of programs. Sometimes they'll even edit out a character's image, from a panel and place it in front of a blank background, along with some panels sliding in to kind of coincide with what's going on, what's being said. And sometimes they'll even add, some extra lines, like they'll ad-lib a few extra lines in there to, give you a full context of what's going on. And that's really cool. And these comic dubs, dramas, if you will, have been going on for years, if not more recently, too much to my surprise, because one person, Natalie Guest, here on YouTube, back in February and recently as of April, has done the first 2 parts of the 4-part Sonic Mobius 30 years later Sonic Universe story arc. And this story arc that was done in the Sonic Universe comic was the last time we ever had any mention of the Mobius years later storyline period. Long story short, in case you're wondering what that is, Ken Penders, back around 133, I think, 133, 134, had started a little side story that was kind of like story B in the main comics, called Mobius Years Later. And it took place 25 years in the future. And Ken had gone on record at that time, and still went on record after the continuation of it went on without him there, that the future we saw in Mobius Years Later, which he dubbed Mobius 25 years later at that time, was indeed the true future. Like, this was the future of the current continuity that we were reading in the comics. And when Ian Flynn came on board and continued the story arc, from where it left off, he used the continuation from the original story arc. He used the continuation to kind of, establish or kind of back up, his point that, Mobius 25 years later was not the true future of the current continuity, that now it was an alternate future, it was an alternate universe. And he used the Mobius 30 years later, which is the Sonic Universe dub, if you will, or the Sonic Universe conclusion that Natalie Guest did a comic dub drama on the first two parts of it so far, here that you can find here on YouTube. Basically, he used Sonic Universe, this arc, like I said, that Natalie Guest so far has done 2 comic dub dramas on, to fully establish that this was an alternate universe. This was an alternate timeline. It wasn't the timeline that Ken had said it was. And even when this came out, this final look into the future of Sonic and his friends, Ken still came out online and said, no, the Mobius years later continuity that I set up is indeed the future. It is indeed what happens. And yet, like I said, Ian Flynn took the conclusion of the 25 years later arc, which ended on a cliffhanger, finished it up, and then used this Sonic Universe conclusion of the entire storyline, dubbed it 30 years later, and said, no, this is an alternate future. This is an alternate timeline. This has no connection to the Prime continuity. And there were several people at Archie that worked on the book as well that kind of backed him up on that. But Ken Penders had, basically stayed stalwart and said, no, you're wrong. No matter what you say, you're wrong, because I've established for the viewers that this is indeed the real future. This is the true future of the Prime continuity. But anyway, to get back on topic, like I said, Natalie Guest, as of recently, as of February and of this April, basically took the first 2 parts and made them into comic dubs. And if what I'm thinking she's going to do is indeed correct, then I can expect possibly by August, if not September, we're going to probably get the 3rd part, and then maybe by the end of the year we'll get the 4th part. So I'm looking at the fact that if she's planning to do this still, continue it, that we're going to get the last 2 parts by the end of the year, at least by August, September, and I guess by the end of this year, November, December, if not into the beginning of next year. But I'm assuming that's her goal, to try to get all 4 parts, comic drama dub wise, out before the year 2021 is done, I should say. But yeah, when I look at something like this and the effort that she puts into it, and the people she brings in to voice the characters, along with other comic dramas and dubs that I see of the Sonic the Hedgehog comic book when it was under the Archie license, and even some based on IDW, because like I said earlier, we're starting to see that over the past several years, and some of the effort that goes into those, it shows you that fans love these stories. They love these stories, they love these characters, and they would love nothing more than to basically see these characters come to life. And like I said, if you want to put the blame on anybody or thank anybody for this happening, you can thank Marvel Comics with the Marvel Knights series that that inspired them to do a motion comic like story on DVD, as well as DC and other independent publishers. And like I said, you want to go way back in time, you can thank the old radio dramas and comedies that came on over the air through the radio from the 30s to the early to mid 50s. So you can thank them, if you thank or blame them, I should say, if you want to give credit to anybody for this happening. But yeah, these comic dramas are amazing, because it feels like, honestly, it feels like you're watching an episode. And I think that's the advantage of audio dramas today, or comic dramas or comic dubs today, that you can now visually see what's accompanying the sound and the voices, and what's going on. And when people started doing this with the Archie Sonic books, it really, like I said, it really showed you how much they cared about the books, how much they care about the characters, but also the fact that it showed how much they wanted to see these moments, these stories come to life. And sometimes, like I said, it's the most interesting, compelling, sometimes controversial stories out there. But yeah, I definitely suggest that if you haven't seen these yet, check out these comic dramas, check out these comic dubs as sometimes they're called. You can look under Sonic comic dramas, Sonic comic dubs. You can look under STH comic dramas, comic dubs, and I guarantee you will see some of the best out there. I mean, you know, there are stories that they did here that really, like, you know, you could read it and everything, but once you apply all the effort that gets put into it with a comic drama based around it, you can't really read it, you know, plainly anymore without hearing the voices that get provided for the characters. I mean, for example, they did the House of Cards two-part arc, if you will, around, what was it, 178 and 179, and it was amazing. It was really amazing. It was they dubbed it a comic drama, but it was really amazing. And now you can't really read that story without hearing those voices coming out of the characters. So again, I suggest checking these out if you have not checked them out. I definitely suggest checking out Natalie Guest, because she, to me, really has put in a lot of effort so far with just these first two parts of the 30 years later arc from Sonic Universe. So I definitely suggest checking her out as well. But that's all I'm going to say, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are down below about the comic dramas and comic dubs. Let me know if you've seen and read some of them, like like which ones are your favorites and everything out there. You know, let me know which ones are your favorites in the comments down below, which ones you've enjoyed or want to look forward to and checking out. Also, let me know what your thoughts are on the live chat during the premiere. Like the video, and I am out. Take care.